Hi, everyone. You're watching a new episode of Humanity Matters Live. And as you know, this is Humanity Matters Live, Save Our Democracy. And as you can see, I had a mask on because we still have the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic in Pittsburgh, PA, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in the United States of America, in the North American continent, and through most of the world. Now, let me be very clear. I don't like wearing a mask. And it is, at times, it feels like it affects your breathing. It feels like that. But I have tested my own oxygen levels. I had an oxygen thing, I forget what they call it. And the mask actually does not restrict your breathing, but psychologically and physiologically, it feels that way. And it's hard to social distance in the sense that we feel isolated. It's a new mentality, and it's hard. The name of this TV series that's been on since the year 2004 or 2004. It's Humanity Matters Live. But due to my medical situation, and frankly, all of us possibly getting COVID and possibly being able to die, I'm in a very odd and ironic situation. I love people. I love you spiritually. Even those of you who disagree with me, and even those of you who call me every name in the book, and probably a couple other different new books, I love you spiritually and mentally. And it's called Humanity Matters Live. But unfortunately, because of my medical condition, and others, millions of us, I actually have to be away from people as much as I can. And I hate to say this, but almost in fear of being around people. So I hope you can imagine how ironic and how difficult that is for me. But the reality is, the COVID-19 coronavirus, it's real. There's a lot of conspiracies saying that it's not real. How do you really know? Did you ever know anybody that died from it? And some of us have, and some of us haven't. But it's 100% real. It's sad. It's unnecessary, but it's real. We didn't need to get to that level in America. The reality is, I'm going to speak to those who will listen. And I guarantee you that there are going to be times when you want to turn off this episode. You're going to be cussing me out. But here's what I'm going to always do. Always. I'm going to tell you what is true. What is fact. What is evidential. What is, if you will, science. Or even spiritual. I'm not going to tell you, to use an example that I've used before, I'm not going to tell you that your window's not broken if it's broken. Because if I tell you your window is not broken and it rains, it gets too hot out, gets too cold out, or it snows, just because we deny that the window is not actually broken doesn't mean that it's not broken. So, when we are denying or delusional about reality, or because we just don't want to accept that, it doesn't mean that it's not real. And frankly, there are going to be things I'm going to say about this election that will anger some of my family members, some of my minister friends. It's going to anger maybe a whole political ideology, maybe both. But if we are going to be people who believe in a higher power or respect, and we want our integrity to stay in place, we can't deny what is. We don't have to like it. We can't deny it. Now, of course, we can deny it, but it doesn't change it. Let me be very clear. If I am driving on a road, let me use another example or scenario or analogy or whatever way you want to put it, parable, not parable, but something like that. I'll give you an example. If I'm driving on a road and I need to make a left turn, and if I don't make a left turn, there's a cliff, and I don't make that left turn because I deny that it is a left turn, or I don't want it to be a left turn, so I keep going straight, a couple of things are going to happen. One, I'm going to go off that cliff. Two, depending on how deep it is, I'm going to get seriously injured or dead. And the point is this. What I'm about to tell you, for those of you who are brave enough to listen, it's going to hurt. It might terrify you, and it should. But let me tell you this. I'm not going to leave you in terror. I'm not going to leave you hurt. Because you see, my friends, we have the power to stop it from happening. And let me remind all of you, those who support me, those who believe me, those who agree with me, and those who don't. In 2016 or 2016, I did at least 20 to 40 or more videos saying these things could happen. Not actually these specific things, but things like these. Now, here's the reality. I'm going to hurt a lot of people. Their feelings, emotions. But if I have to give tough love in order to save your life, and in order to save my life, and to tell the truth, and as the late Representative John Lewis said, maybe I have to get in good trouble. And maybe at a cost of my own personal safety. Maybe at a cost of my professional career. I will do what is right. I will do what benefits you. What benefits my neighbors. What benefits my community. What benefits my country. And in so doing, hopefully it will benefit myself and my family. But I can't speak for you. What I can say is that I believe in the late John F. Kennedy. When he said, ask not what your country can do for you. Rather, ask what you can do for your country. I believe that. I believe in Martin Luther King. When he said, if there is injustice anywhere, there is injustice everywhere. And I believe in the foundation, the founding principles of this very nation. No. Was it perfect? No. And were the forefathers, the founders, racist, some of them? Yeah. Disgusting? Yeah. But overall, they did a great thing. But what's important, whether they were the worst people in the history, there is a couple of things that they did right, for sure. And one of the things was a statement. In order to form a more perfect union. And that's what we need to do. So it's been 10 minutes. I probably lost the room, but I don't care. I love you. Hopefully you'll come back. I sit here in this vehicle because of technical reasons and because of the COVID, I can't get to the studio. So I'm using two different mechanisms to attempt to get this episode into production in order for the election. I want you to understand something. Everything we always were is at stake on November 3rd. We are not talking about an election in this case. We are talking about the physical election, yes. But it's really a referendum on our democracy, our principles. Are we going to live in an authoritarian dictatorship? Or are we going to say once and for all, in no uncertain terms, we are democracy? In a way, you could say we're going back 150 some years to the time of 1863, the time of the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln spoke about binding up old wounds and keeping our country of a government of, by, and for the people. It is that far. I mean, it is that serious. But let me cut to the chase because I've been here for 10 minutes, 10 very century-long minutes. I'm going to cut to the chase. We can either vote or others have either voted for dictatorship or democracy. It is that clear. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for a dictatorship and an authoritarian state. I don't say that lightly. And if any of you are Republican, I ask you to hear me out. That's what we used to do. You could hate what I say, but you listened, and then you said what you had to say. That's what we need. People to listen. Just hold the phone and listen. Throughout the history of this country, no president of any party ever acted in the way and manner of Donald Trump. I've never really agreed with the Republican Party's ideology. I never really agreed with the policies. I never really cared for Ronald Reagan's policies or other Republicans as a whole. But I respected George H.W. Bush. I respected Ronald Reagan. And many of the Republican presidents. I didn't like the actions of George W. Bush for the greater amount, most of it. But you want to know something? I didn't disrespect him. I didn't think he was a danger to this country. I didn't like that we got into these two wars. I thought it was deceptive or a mistake. It could have been either one. But I did not at any time think that our country and every person on the face of the earth was at risk. And for the most part, no other president has ever done or attempted to do what Donald Trump has done. Yes, they have done elements. Of course, both parties have tried at times to, pack the Supreme Court and the other courts. There were things that should not have been done in both political parties. But we didn't go around basically lying and saying, well, if there's another Supreme Court opening, we won't fill it because we didn't fill it under this one party, but yet we do it again. But, it's more than that. We have a situation where we have 227,000 people died because of the COVID. And over 8 million people have been inflicted by it. We have a situation where we have a leader that when there's clearly a racist attack, a hate crime, he doesn't declare that he is not a racist. He doesn't say that he doesn't support or anything, for the most part. But there's a lot more than that. And here's the thing. Officially, I'm a Democrat. So you may not listen to a word that I'm saying. But former Republican members, even in his own, some in his own White House, have come out against him being reelected. What is very important is that there are organizations that are conservative, seriously Republican, that have recently come out and endorsed Joe Biden. And they did that not because they suddenly became liberal or democratic, but because they see the greater good. And frankly, the very real danger of losing democracy. There was one organization, unfortunately, I don't remember the names of these organizations, but they exist, so you can look them up on Google. I would recommend you look at conservative organizations that have endorsed Biden, or maybe you can look at it in a different way. You might type in conservative organizations and individuals who support Biden or endorse him. And the latest one that I read, this organization in particular hadn't endorsed a Democrat in more than 100 years. But what they basically said is, we believe that Joe Biden is the right man for this time. We know ahead of time we're not going to agree with a lot of what he does. But he will work across the aisle. He will do what he can to reunite this country. So if there are Republican generals and there are former chiefs of staff and, Colin Powell, for example, I mean, we're talking about extremely conservative. Either they served in the public life or maybe former presidents. I mean, we have a huge amount of people who say that we cannot afford to put Donald Trump in there. Now, this is not a hate Donald Trump. I don't hate Donald Trump. I hate Donald Trump's actions. But I will say, for the record, I hate that he is a divider, that he is racist. We cannot deny that he is racist. The man is racist. His policies are, the things he says. He's also insulting. He's cruel. He's unlike any other president in the history of this country. You have never, I don't care if they were a Whig party, a Federalist party, a Democrat, a Republican, never in the history of America has anyone ever acted like Donald Trump in that office. Frankly, he's disgraced the office of the presidency. And that's not just me saying that, that's conservatives. I want you to hear that, my conservative friends and family. It's not me. It's actual articles and conservatives. But I made an inflammatory, some would say, statement. I said, a vote for Donald Trump this time around is a vote for a dictatorship. And then I made the statement that he's dangerous. Well, here's the deal. Here's why I say that. We know that no matter what Donald Trump does, how he acts, what possible illegal things he does, we know that the Republicans in Congress will not use the balance and checks. We know that they are complicit and, frankly, conspirators, if one would, well, I won't say conspirators, but they enabled him to do things that should not have been done. In not 19, but 2016, they denied Democratic President Barack Obama, who had the legal right to have a Supreme Court justice appointed. They didn't even give him the respect or merit Garland. And they used the excuse, well, we can't do it during an election. And then this year, when they had the power, they did exactly the opposite. So what do we learn from that? We know that they're liars. Let's call it what it is. It may not sound nice. It may be ignorant. It may be slander sounding, but it is a reality. They said they would never do it, and they did it. That's the reality. They said, a lot of them are saying, well, that we were elected to run the country in 2016, and the president has 4 years. Well, guess what? That's true to a point. But that means that President Obama had that same right. But the Republicans, we're going to lie about that part. But you see, they can't be trusted. Simply put, they're liars. Let us not call somebody honest when they're liars. If Donald Trump deserves his whole 4-year term, so therefore he can appoint all these justices, then Obama had the same right. This is not to rehash things that happened under the Obama administration, although Trump does a lot of that. But this is to show that the Republicans knew Donald Trump did wrong. Throughout his presidency, he's done wrong. And instead of impeaching him and having us bring back the integrity of the office, what did they do? They let him have a free pass. And then McConnell denied Obama in 2016 with the excuse that you can't have a justice appointed during an election, but yet they did it in 2020. What's the point, my friends who want to vote for Donald Trump? The point is, maybe you are an extraordinary conservative. Maybe you like a lot of the policies of Donald Trump. But when I say dictatorship, I say that for a reason. Many people may not be fully tuned in to exactly some of the things I'm meaning and alluding to. So let me be clear. When I say dictatorship, that's because if Congress or the president suddenly decides there's a law that needs to be changed or create a new law, we have a huge amount of conservative-leaning justices now, not just on the Supreme Court. Our Supreme Court truly is no longer a Supreme Court. It's truly a one-sided court. It's 6-3. But what that really means is this: the one party has too much, absolutely too much power, and they have gotten corrupted. That includes the Senate, and unfortunately, with regards to the Supreme Court, over the last 30 years, they have been voting in their ideologies. But what that means is, let's say, for example, there is something new put in place that totally, they decide for whatever reason that really our right to privacy is totally gone now. Although in reality it is for the most part. But let's just say they put the death knell in it and actually put it in writing. And so let's say the American people, including you, most conservative person in America, says, you know what, I don't like that. Well, guess what? Supreme Court decides to rule against it. There are no checks and balances if we do not do something about it. Now, there's the reason why I say it's going to be a dictatorship. There are many reasons. We're losing our privacy. And in a lot of ways, we're losing our democracy in many, many different ways. An hour wouldn't cut it. You can't really get into the meat and potatoes. But one of the things is, what if you are a black man? What if your pigmentation is black? What if you are Asian? What if you are Hispanic, Latino, or maybe Middle Eastern? And you're trying to keep your civil rights and you're trying to not have voter suppression. So you try to have a case or a group of people, like a class action or even a state, get to the Supreme Court and they strike it down. This is a very real possibility. And I want to remind my Republican friends, and for that matter, Democrats, that in less than 12 days, well, let's see, I'd say about 14 days, roughly 2 weeks, we may lose the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. They may overturn it. And a lot of people right now, you might be laughing and being like, yay, finally! Which is, by the way, that's wrong, morally wrong. It's morally wrong. And for anyone that claims to be a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or whatever you may be, if you're okay with that because you don't want to pay more taxes or whatever it is, if you're okay with that, you're really not who you think you are. Because in no religion, as far as I know, any faith, it's supposed to be about love. It's supposed to be about compassion. It's supposed to be about doing unto others. So let's say the Affordable Care Act is struck down by the 6-3 Supreme Court. Well, the most conservative American, who you may be glad about this, but then what happens when it affects you? You're denied health care or your health care costs go up based on the fact you have a pre-existing condition. And you might be saying, well, I'm healthy. I don't have to. I'm not trying to mock you. I'm trying to give you an example. If you think that just because you right now are healthy, or maybe you're a multi-billionaire, if you think it cannot affect you, let me tell you something. It can. Because if we lose the Affordable Care Act, let me explain very quickly. They can charge you or deny you based on your pre-existing condition if we lose the Affordable Care Act. That means over 133 million Americans can be affected. But, here's the thing. We didn't talk, the mainstream media hasn't said this, but I'm going to throw out a little bit of worms into the lake to try to catch the fish, to use some kind of silly analogy. But because of this coronavirus or COVID-19, we no longer will have 133 million Americans that are considered a pre-existing condition, but we will have at least 141 million. Because everyone who gets infected with the coronavirus between now and whenever we finally get it done, that's considered a pre-existing condition. So even though you may be a very extraordinarily healthy Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, progressive, whatever, here's the thing. If you or your family member get coronavirus, and God willing, I hope you never do. But if you do, that's a pre-existing condition. Now, let's say that you're a very faith-based woman. You marry a traditional, what a lot of people say is traditional marriage. You get married to a man and a woman, gets married, and they have the traditional family. And so the woman and the man has their romance, gets very happy, and the woman gets pregnant. And the woman has a child or multiple children. Guess what? If we get rid of the Affordable Care Act, do you know that pregnancy is, that's not fake news, is a pre-existing condition? And you might say, well, okay, pregnancy is a pre-existing condition. Well, unfortunately, if the woman at some point has diseases from, let's say, private areas, or hysterectomies or any of that kind of stuff, their insurance can potentially deny that coverage. And I want to give you some breaking news. I didn't learn that. When I learned it, I didn't learn that from the left. I didn't learn it from CNN or any of that stuff. I learned it from a very conservative Republican woman. And when I learned that was like in 2009. So you see, my friends, we may be politically different. And you may not like a lot of what our government does. I'm not thrilled with a lot of what the Democrats and Republicans do either. It's not like, if you got a D in front of your name, it's not like L automatically votes for you. No. And I got Annette is right next to me in my vehicle. And she will tell you verbally, she will tell you that there are Democrats and Republicans that I liked, but they were running what they call unopposed. They didn't have any competition. I liked them.